Hey, I'm Jonathan, and I live in London, England.
Hey, I'm Jeff, and I live in Perth, Australia.
Together, we are Echo and Sidetrack.
We produce music that sounds like this.
And this.
And even this. This podcast is about music, creativity, and everything in between the giant space that separates us.
Welcome to A Band Apart with Echo and Sidetrack. Today's episode of A Band Apart with Echo and Sidetrack is brought to you by Short Order Burger Co. I, for one, believe it's the best burger in Perth, Australia. And whether you live in Perth and you haven't tried it, or whether you're going to go to Perth and you're looking for the best burger, I advise you go to this place. They've got two stores, one on Hay Street in the city, 800 Hay Street, and one in Fremantle at 3 William Street. The Fremantle is a new store. It looks like an absolute vibe. Great place to go for a drink and enjoy a big old burger. When you go into the store, mention the code word Sidetrack and you'll get 10% off your order. That's a gift from us and a gift from Short Order to you for listening to the podcast. Go out there and enjoy a burger, yo. Hey there, everyone. Just a little warning. Today's conversation between Jeff and I does cover some sensitive issues. We talk about sexual assault and abuse against women. So if you've been a victim of abuse or had experience with that, it might be a little bit of a hard conversation to listen to. But we thought it was an important conversation to have, and we weren't planning on having it, but the conversation just kind of led in that direction. And with everything that's going on in the UK and Australia about sexual abuse, it just kind of felt like the right time to have it. We're going to have another conversation about it in the next 2 weeks with a female guest to get the female perspective and help educate us and kind of discuss how we can be better and how we can kind of help as men. Yeah, so here's the conversation. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you take something out of it. See you next week. Jeff, I just went for a run to get out some anger and some frustration and try to unclog myself. And I got to tell you, I didn't run for long enough and it didn't really work.
What would have been the magic number?
Probably an hour and slower and not like... I only ran for 10 minutes, but I just ran as kind of fast as I could, and then I just stopped and was like, I just need to walk, so I just walked back.
Yeah, that's nice. Do you think someone that was driving past may have thought you were running from someone or something?
Maybe.
Were you running in that kind of frantic kind of way? Did you ever look behind you?
With my hands off, like,
I reckon if you're running fast, you should, and for a decent, chunk of distance, you should just sometimes look behind you as though,
yeah.
So if anyone saw you could be like, is that guy running from someone? Is he being chased?
That'd be pretty funny. Doing that in a well-populated area as well. Like doing it when you're amongst other runners. It'd be funny to see if you could convince someone else to start running. You probably could. I believe that inciting some kind of riot or stampede would be not too far off the realms of possibility, to be honest.
But also potentially a criminal act.
Extremely dangerous? Yeah, definitely. Apparently, I can't remember when I heard this, but apparently looking up at the sky in Perth City is illegal.
Yeah, I think that's one of those
old, outdated laws that may or may not be.
I don't even think it's a law. I think it sounds more like a myth. Yeah, man, you're not allowed to do that. And you're like a kid and you're like, oh, man. What are some things that you definitely thought as a kid And I mean, they don't have to have been something that you've come around to as an adult or you've realized as an adult, but maybe you just a few years later you realized was complete rubbish. Or it can be as an adult that you have come to realize that that was definitely a ridiculous thing to believe. For example, when I was a child, our older brother basically told me that polony was dog's tongue. And
I remember that.
And it turned me off it for a good year. And then it took some heavy convincing. But I'm still not on the polony train.
I remember grabbing Silky's tongue, our old dog, and comparing it to polony and being like, it is hell similar. I can't really think of anything at the moment. I'd like to say I wasn't too much of a gullible kid, but I think I definitely was. I think all children are gullible and will believe things.
Even just like urban legends, like people tell you a story and then like, you know, years later you hear that someone else tell that same story on the internet, or you talk to someone from another country and they're telling a very similar story and you're like, I thought that happened to like my friend's friend in Perth.
I did remember, probably when I was about 14, James Brown, our friend James Brown, told me that he told me the story about a woman who I think had acid or had done some sort of hallucinogen, and she thought her hat kept blowing off, so she nail gunned it to her head and killed herself.
Yeah, that's classic acid stories. Like, the man, this guy took acid and then he went out on a balcony and he thought he could fly, so he jumped off the balcony. And
I believed that, and I was like, that's fucking mental. And I think that actually kind of impacted me in my life to some degree about being kind of wary about hallucinogens. But then I heard, I think on like probably on a podcast that's just like a common story that was kind of told around the world. Like someone who thought their hat was blowing off, that they nail gunned it to their head. Like, so there's that.
I reckon a classic myth that a teenage boy may not be across so much is that when you have sex...
Hercules?
Sorry?
Hercules?
No. When you have sex, that you will come at the same time as the female will come. Like, that's such a movie trope that you see, whether it's in porn or in just like, classic Western cinema. It's like, you'll have sex, everyone will have fun, and everyone will be like, oh, and you'll be like, yeah. And then everyone will feel fucking amazing.
Absolutely.
When you do have sex, you're like, well,
I'm not sure if she liked it and why did it only last for 35 seconds.
I definitely didn't last for 35 seconds for my first time. I definitely lasted a little bit longer.
I think I did.
But
I think I even got some foreplay in there.
Yeah, same. I definitely made it.
I feel like I knew that what I was doing to some degree. That's not true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good one. That's a great one. I think that's like a pretty strong myth that's perpetuated by society that's probably isn't. I mean, it's starting to get talked about more now, but I think it's I can't remember being aware of a girl's orgasm until I had a girlfriend. That's fucked up, right?
No, not at all. I think an orgasm takes trust, communication, a togetherness, a closeness, and
definitely.
For a female particularly, and for a guy, fortunately or unfortunately enough, it is just a case of friction. Like, if you rub the thing enough, you will ejaculate.
If you rubbed my leg for an hour, I'd probably come in at some point.
Potentially, if you're a very sensitive man.
It's a mechanical thing, but no, I mean more so about like how important a female's orgasm is. It's amazing that Well, it's not amazing. It's actually quite dark that young boys aren't taught that that's also an important part of the language of sex and the kind of dance that it is.
I think the female orgasm is not covered anywhere near enough, at least in the sex education I had when I was like in the 90s.
Fuck no.
It was like you learnt how babies were created, you learnt that masturbation was okay, but masturbation to a male is kind of obvious.
Yeah, but
it's like, but then to a female maybe less obvious, and there's more moving parts, there's more different ways to do it, and also a different climaxes to reach, if you will. And I don't think that's covered as much, nor is it as much importance put on it.
Not at all. Female pleasure, like I talk to my girlfriends that, especially in the past couple of years, as we kind of, there's a kind of new sexual revolution, I think, going on with women and shame and men as well to a certain degree. But I've spoken to some of them and they're like, we never talked about like female pleasure or female masturbation at school. It was like periods, don't get pregnant.
Yes.
And it was kind of like
watch out for the sperm.
Watch out for the sperm. This is how you prevent it. And there wasn't anything covered about pleasure. Whereas with the guy, it was like,
watch out for the sperm.
But
it's going to feel pretty good.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to not wrap your dick, but you need to wrap your dick, which is fucked up.
It's super fucked up. Like, it's super fucked up. But I think it is changing. I think it's definitely changing for the better. And I like the fact that it's changing for the better. I like the fact that there's less shame now about females and sex and orgasms and pleasure and that type of thing, and there's more of a landscape to discuss that type of thing.
And it's promoted and encouraged, and I think that's fucking awesome. Like,
it has to be, because it's so sad to like. I mean, yeah, and it's sad to think that they had that kind of they don't have that opportunity, or from a societal point of view, that pleasure and sex isn't as kind of, it's definitely not as normalized for women.
Yeah, at all. Like, even look at the way it's portrayed in movies. Like, look at American Pie. He was learning how to masturbate, and he got like kind of like, and he fucked the pie. There's the only mention of female pleasure kind of in that movie is she shoved a flute up her pussy at band camp. And that's just a throwaway gag, not even like that would be pleasurable. Maybe Shannon Elizabeth says something about how she would like something done, or is it that young dude gets tips on how to eat a girl out?
Yeah, with his mum maybe.
Or his brother?
I'm not too sure.
Leaves a... Yeah, but again, that like the theory of the older woman knowing all these like tricks and stuff is just perpetuated, and like, oh, no young person could know how to have fun. They need a MILF to go out and do it.
I really enjoy an open conversation.
I agree.
Like I really appreciate that in my sexual partners. There's just more talking.
That's so important. Again,
do this. Let's get to this point. I didn't come. Can you do this? Can I do this? What can I do? You know, there's more communication rather than just like, 10 years ago, it's probably a bit more slapdash and kind of asking the question like, I remember being like 18 and sleeping with someone being like, I wonder if she came. I don't think she did though, but like,
God forbid you ask.
And me going like, did you, and I think I would say like, did you come? Like, no, but it's okay. And my dumb mind was like, okay, she said it's okay, so it's fine. But I think that's just ridiculous.
I mean,
that's
you've got to take someone's word for it, but communication is key. And like I said, that like sex is better when you communicate
Yeah.
better and when there's less guessing and more closeness. And the only way you
Yeah.
get more closeness is by communicating and
Definitely.
forming a bond. Essentially, sex is not just putting P in V
No.
or letting V engulf P. No matter how you look
No.
at it, it's more about it's everything that leads up to it and everything that happens during it. It's the closeness, it's the coming together, it's mental, it's so much about that stuff.
Yeah. I think it's massively emotional and mental. Like if you're thinking about something else while you're sleeping with someone, then you're sleeping with the wrong person or you're not doing it correctly. And I don't mean something else like the washing, but you're just not there. You're not present. And when you find someone that you can have sex with and you're 100% there and present and in the moment and reacting, and it's just pure presence, and that makes it so much more enjoyable.
Good sex should be meditative.
Yeah, when you like lose yourself in the moment, that's when it's really good. Speaking about women, obviously you heard about the woman that was abducted and murdered by a police officer in Clapham.
Yes, what's her name? Sarah?
Yeah, her name is Sarah Everard. Everard? It's kind of sparked like a larger conversation now, I think, about women and the safety of women and sexual assault and how many women are murdered by partners, ex-partners, husbands.
So men in general is pretty fucked up.
And men in general. Yeah. And I saw in Perth that there was a big march. There was a demonstration. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about the demonstration, but I did have a bit of a conversation with my girlfriend about the whole situation. And we were talking about kind of the madness that basically every girl has had a scary moment with a guy.
Yeah.
A stranger. And also someone who's may not be as strange to them.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think that everyone just keeps going on like the old trope that is surely dying by now, but she was asking for it by wearing that or something like that.
Yeah.
Some people say that's got to be dead by now.
Well, that's just victim blaming.
It's ridiculous, but it's like at the end of the day, me and Holly were talking, and it's just like men just need to stop fucking attacking women. Like,
yeah,
what the fuck? Why is literally like 50% of the population not allowed to walk home by themselves? Like, I don't walk home by myself sometimes.
Yeah.
But why is it that it's way more dangerous for a woman? Well, how about guys just be less fucking rapey and violent and everything like that? Like, it's a real fucking problem.
It's a problem with men that I don't think men really discuss that much. Like, I know I've definitely said or been around people and I've been like, you're kind of coming onto her a bit strong, or...
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I've never really liked picking up girls in a very, overt fashion because I find it kind of uncomfortable.
It's gross as well, yeah.
But I think men need to just... we always say education. More education, but, how do you think you fix those people that pull up to a bus stop with a girl sitting there and be like, hey, do you need a lift home or anything? Where are you from? Or start talking to a girl when she's waiting for a taxi or something like that. How do you stop those people that like proper predators?
And I'll say this, anything that we're going to say in this podcast is literally just John and I having a discussion. We're we're trying to think our way through the process.
Yeah.
We're definitely on the side of women in this case. But I would say that there is this weird line that things cross, because I've definitely talked to girls in the taxi line and been like, oh, maybe I could go home with this girl.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a, I'm going to take this girl home with me, but in a like, oh, I think I saw that girl in the bar. I'm just going to spark up a conversation. Perhaps she'll think I'm charming, and like we'll be able to convince each other to go to get to know each other a bit more rather than go home.
There's a difference between talking to a girl and trying to get to know her, and she's trying to get to know you, and the dance of flirtation and that type of thing. I think that's a completely different thing to a girl who clearly doesn't want to talk to you, but you still try to force interaction. You know, if we're in a club for some reason and we want to go we go, oh, that girl's really pretty, I want to talk to her. You go up to her and you talk to her, and she's like clearly not interested in talking to you. We just go, okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you might even say
you're not interested.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll
and just
sorry.
Make a little joke and walk off. You're not mean to them. Whereas some people are.
I mean, like the people that are like, there's a girl by herself. That's an opportunity for me to almost make her feel uncomfortable on purpose. Like if I saw a girl by herself sitting at a bus stop and I was also waiting at the bus stop, there is no fucking way I would sit down next to her and be like, hey, what bus stop are you going? Like, where are you going tonight?
I'd do everything in my I'd take my headphones off, or maybe I'd just like I'd stay as far away from her as possible. I wouldn't be creepy. And if the moment arose, I'd do everything in my ability to make her feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
I'd take my headphones off and be like, hey, hi, I'm just waiting for the 9:15. Like, don't mind me or mind you. Like, because I know how badly that could be misconstrued.
So how do we fix the guys that think that going up to that girl and asking these questions and forcing her to have an uncomfortable conversation? How do we fix those people, or how do we find those people, or how do we solve that problem? Because I feel like there's a lot of guys that do that type of thing.
I think aggressive male behavior towards women is far too common.
Fuck yeah.
And it's almost like guys like, oh, I was just joking.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not a thing. Like, nah. Like, I remember seeing a guy say to a girl, like, you know, like kind of move closer to her. She's talking to other people. He's just like moving in, like,
yeah.
Oh, you know, so-and-so, yeah. Oh, no, that guy's a dickhead, eh? Like, why don't you come back to mine? Like, this, like, really aggressive. I'm just like, whoa, what the fuck is going on here? Like,
yeah.
This is gross. Guys believe they're owed, like, a kiss or a fuck or something like that. You know, commonly referred to in like popular culture, I suppose, like things like, oh, you always pay for your sex. You got to buy him a few drinks first. Oh, yeah, I don't get laid unless I go out on a date. Or like, you know, there's this like narrative.
It's like transactional.
Yes, and narrative that girls are difficult, and if you really want to get a girl, you have to be perseverant, and you have to like win them over, and you have to give them gifts, and you have to make them like, you know, all this kind of shit. Like it's monkey communication. It's like shit communication skills. Like you don't actually understand how to communicate. The classic thing of like, I remember Holly telling me once, guys come up and talk to her and her friends, and it's not enough to say, oh, thanks, mate, we don't want to drink. And he'll be like, whoa, what do you want? Like, and he'll keep saying something, and then they'll be like, no, sorry, we're just talking. We'd rather not talk to you, thanks. And it's like, they've got to say a few things. And then it comes down to that. Then they go, sorry, I've got a boyfriend. And then the guy's like, oh yeah, all right, no worries. Fuck. Should have just said. It's almost like the female has to say there's another male involved for the male to back off.
Yeah, that's a classic. That is a classic.
Or my husband, where's your wedding ring? Oh, fucking like, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
it's like their opinion and them just saying, no, I don't want to talk to you is not a good enough reason for the guy to then be like, okay, I'll back away.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
That's such a fucked thing, man. I remember at Shape, someone was talking to a group of my friends that were girls. This was a while ago. And they clearly just weren't interested, and he just wasn't going away. And then I just walked over and stood next to them, and he was like, all right, like, fuck this anyway, like, this sucks, and just walked off. Even my presence being there was like, oh, wait, there's another man. It is like very primitive ape behavior of like, it's like alpha behavior.
Which is why I think this, like, given the wrong circumstances and the right amount of fuck-uppedness of a person, of a male, they might just think that female walking by themselves 30 meters in front of them owes them something. Oi, calls out to them. Oi, where are you going?
Oh, fuck.
And then God forbid she turns around because she's pretty drunk and she's like, oh, do I know that guy? Like, you know, fuck, and doesn't just run or something.
It sucks. It sucks that even, like,
because man, you could.
That,
sorry, you go.
It just the fact that we are even having a discussion about how to kind of protect women. I mean, it's good, but it's fucking mental that we've never had this discussion about. Like, have you ever had a discussion with your group of friends about how to protect yourselves?
No, not really. It just becomes a you know, oh man, if there was a fight, like that guy would jump in. Like, I'd definitely jump in and you.
But even if you're by yourself, like, never really.
No, but I shit myself regularly. I cross the road. I like look in the corner of my eye and like.
Yeah, for sure, but not to the same extent that girls do. And I think it's mental that they have to worry about, and they are primed and educated and from such a fucking young age as well.
They're not taught about the pleasures of an orgasm, Jonathan, but they are taught how not to get fucking raped by men. That's fucked up.
That is fucked up. That is fucked up. That is so fucked up.
I also think that, like, there's certain guys that you have dealings with and you're like, I don't think you treat women well. And you just get this weird feeling around them. And I'm not saying I'm some fucking pious person on my high horse that has always been polite to girls and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is I've, again, had interactions in public or something and you hear how people talk and you're like, what? How has that person ever had sex?
Yeah.
Like, and especially, you know, you get a bunch of them together. And then they just like start behaving in a way that is not unlike like chimps running around like beating their chest, then thinking they can take anything.
Yeah.
And like I've heard too many fucking stories of girls that were like, yeah, like they talk about what happened or like, yeah, then I had to leave. I had to call a cab. It wasn't, you know, the party wasn't good. And I'm like, that sounds like it was like 2 or 3 steps off rape.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm like, do you talk to that guy regularly? And like, yeah, he's one of the friends, but like, he's just always like kind of creeps on me. He thinks I think he likes me. I'm like, no, he definitely likes you, but how long till he like thinks you owe him something or something? Like, it's important. But fuck, a girl. How many times should a girl have to say like, we're just friends, man?
Once.
Exactly.
She should only have to say it once. But unfortunately, again, the guys don't respect girls. No, or there's that stupid adage of like, no doesn't mean no, or like she's just playing hard to get. Like all those fucking tropes are just
and sometimes sometimes
fucking prevalent.
males and females do play that game. No, I don't want to drink, and then they're like that, and then they're flirting and stuff like that. But there is a difference, because you can tell when someone doesn't want to fucking talk to you.
You can tell the difference between someone being coy and someone clearly not wanting to talk to you.
Yeah,
And I just don't think people can pick up. I think there's a certain part of the population, predominantly men, that just cannot pick up on body language, cannot fucking actually listen to what the woman is saying. And I just think they just completely ignore it and are kind of acting as if they are owed something and completely selfish, and it's
do you know
fucking gross.
Would be interesting, an interesting like exercise, like a smaller country like Iceland or Holland could do this, is they have a women's day and night a women's night every month or every like 3 weeks or something, and it's like men have a curfew. Men have to be home by 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Women can stay out and do whatever they want, and it's like all the bars and stuff are run by, or if you're working you can be out or something, or you have to have an exemption or something, and then it just can be like open, and the women could feel completely safe from men. I mean, they're not safe from, falling over or other women or other things like that. Yeah. But
predominantly, men is the...
It's the men's the issue, and it would just be an interesting little social experiment. Because, and imagine how much of the noise the guys would say, this is so fucking unfair. How about you shut the fuck up and stop raping people?
Yeah. That's actually quite an interesting idea. I mean, it couldn't...
Can you imagine if, like, 3 times a year, or 4 times a year, London said, like, it's not just, like, International Women's Day. This is, like, London Women's Night. And there are no guys out.
Men would riot. There'd be a riot.
Oh, just tell them to shut the fuck up and watch a football game or something. Just stay home. Everyone's gotten pretty good at being locked down. Just trial it. I just think it's not, because nothing seems to send a message. Like, how do you tell men to stop being fucking rapers? Like, and stop treating women so badly, and stop abusing their clear physical advantage. Like, imagine there was something that was bigger than us. There was like a third type of humanoid thing. And, fuck it. Imagine bears roam the street. But bears didn't get
only
women.
Fucked up guys.
Yeah, they're only fucked up guys. We'd be looking for all sorts of things.
We would be calling for bear culls. We would be like, these things need to stop. We need more safety. We need more police on the streets. We need more of this.
And you could be friends with them, but they attacked. They only attacked men, and they were easily provocable. And guys would fight them. They'd be like, oh, I'm a tough guy. I'm going to fight the thing. But, whatever happened, if we felt as victimized, it would be fucking crazy.
And I think it would be changed a lot quicker. And the fact that it doesn't get changed because it's women, man, it's the same as fucking. I think in New Zealand, most recently, and in Scotland, like all period products and sanitary products for girls are free.
Is it free or tax exempt? Or
I'm
genuinely not sure.
Maybe tax exempt, but for girls in high school, for girls in school, I think it's free.
That's great.
Because the idea is that there shouldn't be a economic issue. It should just be a human right. The fact that has only just come into play in 2021 or 2020 is fucking mind-boggling.
It's almost like if men bled from their noses once a month and women didn't require tissues at all, and they charged us for tissues.
Yeah.
It's like, everyone does it. It happens once a month. And they're like, yeah, you got to buy your tissues. And you're like, why don't you just give us tissues for free? Why don't you just use a bit of newspaper?
Yeah.
It's nuts. Like, to that this stuff isn't more, particularly the fucking violence against women. How is this thing still ongoing? Like, we just need more. It's not even awareness. It's just like fucking equality and fucking men just need to be better in some cases. And then what makes a bad man? I don't know. And what can make a better man? I don't know.
I think what makes a better man is fucking having some honor and respect for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you feel more of like, you know, if there is a physical advantage, why wouldn't you be more of a protector than a predator?
Yeah, good point.
Like if you're, why don't you go out of your way to make people feel comfortable? Why don't you fucking show women that you're an ally and you support them
and not to get laid.
And not to get laid.
That's because that's your natural position in the world. Like kindness is your natural place.
Yeah, fucking kindness, man. Because people, this isn't women saying, I'm not going to try to speak for women. I'm starting to feel like I did on the podcast we recorded before we talked to Jake about Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. I think we should talk to a woman about it more. Maybe we should see who can come on the podcast next week and discuss it with them.
I absolutely agree. I think that'd be a great idea. I think it's interesting to hear the all male perspective as well, though.
Yeah,
because it's a male problem,
and it is also up to us to fix it and to be better, and to figure out how we can try to
It's the same way that you're
anti-racist.
Yes. Yep.
So we have to be like anti-violence against women and like call out your dodgy friend who's like fucking catcalling someone or
just being a creep, like coming on too strong.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Did I tell you about the guy that was coming on to the girl outside work last year?
Yeah.
And like the girl was kind of hanging around the shop front, and we asked her, I was like, hey, are you okay? And she's like, I'm just waiting for a friend, it's all good. And I was like, okay. And then I like kind of looked down the road, and there was like a guy kind of just like walking around who's clearly drunk, and kind of like looked like staring at her. And I went back up to the girl and was like, hey, we're just having a beer out the front of the shop, like if you feel uncomfortable, like, feel free to just stand around us. Like, we're going to be here for about half an hour. And she's like, okay, thank you. And then as soon as we saw, the guy saw that she was kind of like hanging, again, just standing near us. He kind of like crossed the other road and like was watching her and kind of like looked a bit mad, walked around the corner, came back. Like, he was like a fucking shark or like a lion or something waiting.
That's fucking gross.
And eventually, like this poor girl's like looking at her phone and like trying to call her mates that are going to pick her up. We end up just staying there a bit longer, and then eventually she gets picked up. I'm like, have a good night. Maybe we should have just gone over and fucked that guy up after she left, or like maybe we should have confronted that guy, or
it's not violence wouldn't be the answer, because then
violence doesn't beget violence, I guess. But like seeing it.
I think the real problem is people that make bad decisions. Because if you make enough bad decisions, you have no radar for the next bad decision. It's almost like think of it as a scale that is being morally neutral in the middle, and that the more good decisions you make knocks yourself to the right into the good zone. So good decisions are easier to make, and the more bad decisions you make knocks yourself left into the bad zone. Therefore, it's easier to make more bad decisions, and you have to make more good decisions to knock yourself closer to neutral. If you're constantly making arguably bad decisions, then what's fucking yelling at this girl and stealing a chocolate bar from the off license and calling someone a name, like a racist name? If that's your neutral position, then you're going to err on thinking that another bad decision isn't really that bad.
Yeah,
I
and
wouldn't
that's when you
fucking
get-
rape her. I wouldn't kill her. I was just trying to fucking get laid, man. And I'm doing an English accent.
And that's
I'm
when-
sorry, England. That's not. I'm just doing a character. It could be anyone, but that's the thing. People think like, oh, I was just doing this. I was just doing that. How about you just fucking shut the fuck up, go home and masturbate, and leave any other person out of it? Imagine they castrated these people and let them go back into society. Like, took their testosterone.
I think it would be interesting if you could subdue someone's testosterone for an extended period of time.
You can. I think that's chemical castration. Isn't that what happened to
Alan Turing.
where was it? Alan Turing for
Yeah, but I think chemical castration is not something you can kind of turn back on.
Oh, I don't think so, yeah.
But I think if you could, I mean, that's an interesting punishment idea. Like, if you are a convicted of sexual harassment or sexual assault, then you not only get jail time, but you get, maybe you just get your testosterone taken away from you for your jail sentence and for a certain period of time while you're on probation. And you also have to fucking go to meetings with sexual assault and sexual abuse survivors. Like, you have to entrench yourself in seeing
And understanding.
and understanding that what you did was so fucking damaging to your victim. I think you need to feel fucking guilt so you never do it again, and you can become a member of society that fights against that kind of fucking action. Like,
I'm always amazed at when these things happen. It comes out in the news. The guy had been reported for a few things in the past, or he had a
always
slight charge for this and that kind of thing. And it's not always a, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. People do redeem themselves. People do make mistakes. But how many, how many passes do people get? There was a woman in Melbourne a few years ago that was attacked and murdered. And the guy that did it was not long out of jail. Was on parole.
Yeah, she was a presenter for Triple J or something. She was a journalist.
Yeah, I think she was a journalist.
I remember. Yeah, I remember.
Then
that
the
case.
Claremont serial killer, he had numerous cases against him, some which were not deemed kind of serious enough at the time. Like a friend told me, I don't know much about the case, but a friend told me that there was one that was he took a girl into a bathroom stall and all but raped her, and she got away, and that was just a charge of assault, because he never entered her sexually, or there was no, it was, I don't know if it was even that much, but it was basically equivalent to slapping someone on the street. Like, it wasn't even as bad as like a punch kind of thing. So these kinds of things didn't show up when the cops were looking for this person.
Because he didn't get punished.
Yeah, the punishment wasn't the full thing. Either way, I think it's arguably it's very rarely the first time these kinds of things happen. Who knows what will come out about this police officer. And unfortunately, it doesn't bring poor Sarah back or make up for any of the kind of heartache that families and everyone else is feeling. I just hope this is a change, and this can spell the start of some movement in the fucking in the way against violence against women.
My one of my friends actually went down to the vigil that they held in Clapham,
Oh yeah.
and she reckons it was really, really heavy. She could feel the sadness and the anger with all the women there.
Mm.
And it was like a joint pain. And when the cops came, she kind of spoke to a couple of them, and a couple of them were like, look, we know you guys are hurting and this is really sad, but like, just try to keep your distance, like, be here for a bit and kind of say some words, or kind of make some peace, and then can you please move on? They were kind of a bit trying to keep the peace, but then others were just like pretty quick to assert dominance and just like fucking violence again.
If a police officer rapes and kills a woman, do you think the correct people to send to a vigil for that woman are police officers? Probably not.
I think it's such a poor.
And then they're to try and disband them, and fuck no. I don't really know the full story, but it sounds like they were like trying to stop it based on COVID-19 rules. Has that kind of thing ever happened before? Have they broken up other protests and stuff like that? Like,
well, they tried to break up the
Black Lives
BLM
Matter
protests last year. But then there was footage of the BLM protests that they tried to break up, and then there was the All Lives Matter fucking fuckwits that came out, the white pride people, that they didn't fuck with it all, and they were like hurling abuse at police. And
it's a very murky fucking world we live in. I saw today on Twitter that Boris and his cabinet are trying to pass rules that would put a stop to disruptive protests, and like the word disruptive is in quotes because it's like that's what they're trying to say. Then they're trying to say like protests shouldn't disrupt other people's days and going about things, like if a protest came through Oxford Circus, they could say this is unlawful, everyone needs to be arrested, we're going to get heavy fines for these people because they disrupted the goings on of that really busy area. But then
how else do you get heard when no one listens to you?
Exactly. And fuck me if they're not going to use that definition of disruptive to bend around the rules. Like, the group of 50 people were very, very disruptive.
Yeah, for things that I don't like.
Yep.
That kind of stuff is super scary. The only power that people have is that we have the power to kind of stand together and join some sort of protest. And you see like a mass movement. When the Black Lives Matter protests were happening all around the world, that was a real showing of solidarity.
Yeah.
That's a real, like, it can't kind of be ignored. Even though in some cases I feel like it has kind of been ignored by certain governments. But like you can't take that power away from people, because fucking petitions don't really work all the time, and like a lot of people can't go through the right channels, and sometimes it's a showing of solidarity that's letting people know that have been victims of, whether it's women and sexual assault, or whether it's people of color and victims of racism, like what it is that gives them confidence and a bit of fucking, it's telling them that, hey, this is how many people are on your side. We know that you feel ignored, and we know that you feel isolated. We're telling you we're on your side. That has some kind of vindication for them. Like, it doesn't fix the problem at all, but like it does have an element of vindication for them. And for a government to want to take that away from the people is very scary, because then like it's isolating those people even more.
And it's saying that your thing doesn't matter.
Yeah, your thing doesn't matter. And anyone that thinks it matters, we're going to prosecute and arrest.
Mm.
I think that's super dangerous.
Really, really, really dangerous.
There's a lot of draconian laws being discussed. They're talking about vaccine passports as well.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, I'm for the vaccine. I would get the vaccine. But at the same time, I think it's very dangerous to label anyone that doesn't want the vaccine as a conspiracy theorist or an anti-vaxxer.
Or saying that you can't have certain things because you don't have the vaccine.
Yeah, I think that's a very scary path to start going down. They're doing it in Israel, I think. That they're saying, like, once you get the vaccine, because they've vaccinated like 70% of the population.
Yep.
So basically got this tag or this wristband that allows you to go to bars, restaurants, everywhere, and if you don't have it, you can't go.
Mm.
It's like making like another divide. It's making like a second-class citizen, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's it. It sounds like it makes sense. As in, like, yeah, of course, if you want to travel, you'd have to have some sort of a mark that says you can travel, because you're only allowed to travel if you've had the vaccine. But then, at what point do we hit where it says, like, okay, well, you now take it upon yourself? Like, things have died down so much that you can take it upon yourself.
You can get the vaccine, or you don't get the vaccine.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's I feel like the vaccine is its enemy is misinformation, but it's also like it is the fastest we've ever developed a vaccine, and there's a lot of there's some issues with it, but you know, if I'm on the side that, like, if it leads us back to normality faster, I'd get it, and I'd even probably have a mark in my passport if that's what it took. But I'm not going to take a microchip or something like that. But then again, like, you know, if this then that, like, how many steps away are we from that kind of behavior?
Well,
in the future,
yeah. I mean, once you start, something can become normalized with it. I mean, the lockdown has shown us how quickly you can be okay with your restrictions, your freedoms being restricted.
Yeah, or what kind of a reason do you need to have your freedoms restricted?
Yeah, and it's a dangerous thought. While I don't really think most governments are evil, I think most governments are corrupt, and they don't have the best interests of the people at hand. And I think that mostly they've just run by negligence and people kind of making it up as they go. I think it's less insidious than some of the conspiratorial people think out there. I think it's more just bumbling idiots making things up and not really knowing too much what they're doing.
And also just trying to placate to their base or their people.
Or corporate interest, or whoever.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoever's going to benefit from it. It's a scary time, Jeff, to live in this world. But next week we'll get someone. We'll speak to a woman about this.
Yeah, we'll find someone.
Who do you think?
I've got some ideas. We'll talk about it off the air, though.
Oh, you don't want to throw your ideas into the
cauldron? No, I don't.
Okay, we can talk about it off the air. It's getting late for you, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do want to ask you how the show was in Brisbane on Friday.
Yeah. Shout out to the Brisbane crew that came out. It was really, really good. It was awesome to again travel interstate and play a show. I got up early and left Perth at 7 in the morning and arrived back in Perth at 12 o'clock the next day. So it was a real in and out kind of situation. The show itself was really, really great, well attended. People were definitely responding to the tunes. Brisbane's been a bit of a non-drum and bass place for a little while. Like, it's been pretty dubstep focused for a minute. Like, big acts will get a crowd there, but like, the scene for drum and bass has been a bit ebbing and flowing. But I think it's coming back with a vengeance, and I think that's really exciting. Chatted to a bunch of younger people there as well, and they were excited by what we were doing and what other people were doing. And shout out to Alex and Kate, building some really big things up in Brisbane. And I can't wait to go back. And I think, it's exciting to see that scene grow. And then, what does that mean for the rest of Australia? I think that wave is going to really wash from New Zealand and just start breaking over the rest of the west, over the west of Australia, over the rest of Australia. Funnily enough, I did have a bit of a COVID conundrum. At about 7:30 at night, there was news that a hospital had been locked down in Brisbane. And Alex showed me on his phone, and I thought it was like a screenshot that he was like just tricking me, like, because it had a big like red alert thing at the top, and and I was like, really? And I looked, and it was happening. And they'd been 59 days COVID free. And so all of a sudden this hospital got locked down, and, I played the show and got out the next day. I had a mask on. It was mandated to have masks in airports and on all flights the whole time. And then when we landed, I like presented my little G2G pass, which is like a barcode that like is basically, it's not an approval to leave or an approval to return. It's like a record of your return. And when me and Holly came back from the Barossa at the start of the year, we just had a G2G and we like showed them, they scanned it, and it was all good. This time we had a temperature check and a woman asking us if we'd potentially been to any sites before we even presented our G2G. So it was a little bit more of an experience.
So was there a case in the hospital?
Yeah, a doctor had. I'm not sure what the next step had been was, but a doctor had got it potentially from working with patients with it, and she had gone out into the community on the Thursday, and apparently she had low levels of it or something like that. I'm not sure. But what they did is they locked down Greater Brisbane for 3 days. And if you had been to any of the sites, you had to report for a COVID test. And I got a message on the Sunday saying that we know that you've come back from Queensland. Have you been to any of these sites? You need to quarantine and present for a test. And they also said that when I got in from the airport. But all of the sites she visited were on the Thursday. And I only arrived on Friday. And I basically stayed in Fortitude Valley, and I tagged into every place I went to, and I got the hell out of there.
Man, it's crazy that the country that you are in currently has no COVID cases, but is so strict on everything.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, the UK has so many, and everyone's getting a vaccine and everything. And then they reckon you guys will just like come out the other side and be like, yeah, we're all good. I think you'll go through a little bit of a patch of being like, how are we trying to contain this now that we're like low and everyone's got a vaccine? Like, what's...
Well, I don't think they will contain it. I think this is what herd immunity looks like, essentially. I think it's cost a lot of people their lives and people jobs, work, careers, all sorts of stuff. But I feel like this is what the immunity looks like, I think. I can't see Australia really opening back up to the rest of the world until they all get vaccinated.
No, I can't either. And Australia's taking their vaccinations pretty seriously and slowly. We've got 54 million AstraZeneca ones, and we're just holding off a little bit because of a few of the countries in Europe saying that they're stopping the AstraZeneca for some more trials or something due to blood clots. But then I saw some interesting statistic that said in the 18 million that had been dished out so far, there was 4 blood clots or 8 blood clots or something. And then in the AstraZeneca trials, there was 4 blood clots and then 8 blood clots in the placebo group. So, like, basically what this article was saying, it was from the ABC. It was saying that, like, these things can happen. You've got to imagine, the way I look at it, other people I've heard people talk about it, is like, if you're going to immunize, if the goal is to immunize fucking 6 billion people, or even just let's call it Australia, you're going to immunize every person over 25, which is like, I don't know, 15 million, call it. You're going to immunize 15 million people. There's going to be some anomalies in there.
Yeah.
And that's what has happened, because that's how statistics work.
Nothing is 100% safe, unfortunately.
And also, yeah, exactly. And the greater that number goes up, the greater number of anomalies pop up as well. Like, if you were only immunizing 100,000 people and you had like 15 deaths, you'd be like, ooh, maybe not worth it. But if you're immunizing 15 million people and you get 15 deaths, you're like, I don't think these were related so much to the vaccine as like related to extraneous things. But I'm not a doctor.
Undiagnosed.
Yeah.
You're not a doctor?
Not yet, Jonathan. It's been a very serious podcast, hasn't it, Jonathan?
It has. Serious times, Jeff. Things are happening that are serious.
They are.
And I think it's important that we comment on them and we talk about them, even if, I'm going to go back and edit this conversation, obviously, but I don't think we really misspoke or said anything too bad. I think we're kind of clear and concise with most things.
Yeah, like I said, we're thinking through the things as well. We're having a conversation. The fact that we're recording it is just another part of the deal. I just want to say, you guys last week were really, really, really good. It made me very proud to hear you and Max having such an amazing, insightful, and lovely conversation on a podcast that I'm normally part of. And I listened to it and I felt like I was listening to someone else's podcast. And I really loved your magnetism between you and the way you talk to each other and the topics you discussed. And yeah, I just want to say big, big congratulations to you, and a big, big love to you, Max, for coming on the podcast and bearing your soul and, sharing with the world what a sweet, sweet prince you are. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was quite good. And Max really rose to the occasion. I didn't really give him much of an option.
Or much notice. I basically told you, I was like, sorry, man, I'm not going to have time to do this. And you're like, I can do one with Max. And then before I knew it.
And I said that before I knew that he could do it.
But Max, you smashed it.
But I really enjoyed that conversation. And I think now it's back up. So that's positive. Okay, buddy, let's talk and discuss more offline about the plan for next week and the other stuff we've got going on.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Thank you for being my buddy and my sounding board. I really value these conversations. Sometimes I'm not in the mood to have them. I've I've actually had a bit of a grumpy day myself, and doing some exercise and aligning a few things has helped me feel better. But also chatting to you and like losing myself in the meditation of conversation, has been really lovely. So thank you very much. And
Thank you, buddy.
thank you, dear listener, for listening and tuning in to what is fast approaching nearly 50 episodes. So, all right, buddy. I'll chat to you next week. I love you.
I love you too. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on your podcast app and keep up to date with all new episodes. They're going to be coming out once a week. We are Echo and Sidetrack on Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, we are Echo Sidetrack. Go listen to our music on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube, or wherever your ears consume happiness. Lots of love, people.